Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin and my hair does not normally look like this. This is a wig that I purchased off of Amazon. I worked on thinning it out last night, so I felt like I wanted to wear it in a video that I'm filming tonight. So anyways, the video that we're filming today is the eyeshadow palette tag video that's been going around. A lot of different beauty YouTubers, I guess, have been doing it. It's basically, it was created by Samantha and Allie Glines, and it's basically just a list of different categories where you talk about eyeshadow palettes from your collection that fit into that category. It's, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So I am pulling out my list because I'm pulling up a list on my iPad because I forgot what they are. Okay. So the first category is newest palette, and so I actually got two at the same time. Now, these aren't my most recently ordered palettes, but these are the ones that arrived most recently. These are the Kaleidos. This is the Futurism 5 Electro-Turquoise palette and the Futurism 3 Astro Pink palette. They ship from China, so it took them like a month to get here, which is, I mean, given everything that's going on, it makes sense. So first up, we will talk about the Kaleidos Futurism 3, the Astro Pink palette. They have these clear inserts that have the shade names. I'm keeping them just because if I ever post a look or something, I want to be able to say which shades I use, but this is what she looks like. You have this really pretty sparkly black, this beautiful like blue purple duochrome, and then this shimmer shade. Stunning. It's like probably my favorite shimmer that I have in my collection. I really love this one. I've only used it once. I think it just got here in the last week or so, but beautiful. I love it. And then this is the Futurism 5, the Electro-Turquoise palette. It is what I'm wearing on my eyes right now, which same thing on the plastic. I could die for that shade. Like, it is so pretty. I don't know if you guys can see how like sparkly it is. Oh my gosh, I love it. I have that shade on my inner corner and then these shades in the crease. I just think this is such a pretty palette. I really actually like this brand. I also ordered some of their highlighters and they've been great as well. So yeah, this is Kaleidos. And those were my newest palettes. So now my oldest palette. Okay, so I had to do some research on this one. I have quite a few palettes from 2018, which I mean makes sense because it was only 2 years ago. But this palette came out in February of 2018. I remember I got it for my birthday, which is in April of 2018. And I think every other 2018 palette I have came out in either the summer or the fall. So this, I'm pretty sure, is my oldest palette. So this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette. That's what she looks like. Very pretty warm toned palette. You have this beautiful dusty rose shade. I really like that color. Rose pink and sultry are really pretty shimmers, also glistening and fairy are really pretty as well. Overall, I really like this. I still to this day this is one of my favorite palettes. So yeah, let's see. Most expensive. Okay, this is going to hurt me to discuss. So my most expensive palette is my Natasha Denona Safari palette. This is a all matte palette. I guess we'll try and go like that. So that's what she looks like. Beautiful, beautiful color story. I never wanted to purchase a Natasha Denona palette because they are $129, and I was like, that is insane. Like, who's going to spend over $100 on an eyeshadow palette? Like, that just blew my mind. Now, I did not purchase this at full price because I still, like, $100 is like my line that I think I will never cross. Like, I can't rationalize spending $100 on an eyeshadow palette. I bought this one on sale earlier this year. It's now 50% off, so I kind of wish I waited a little bit, but I really like this. It is not, I guess I can keep holding it up so you can see. I think the color story is beautiful, and I really love this, you know, quad of colors right here, and then especially like this quad of colors as well. And then you can kind of mix and match, you know, the colors too, and I think create pretty looks. But she's not the easiest palette to use, which to me if I paid full price for it, I would be pretty ticked off, because like $129 should work. Like it should apply and blend out. Now, if you've watched my March, well, I'm probably putting this up before the March sadness ends. She is in the semifinals. I know you all know that as of right now. But as I've done those looks, it's been really easy to blend out the shades. I haven't had too much trouble with that. But I have had to spend more time on it. So I guess not that I've had trouble, but it just like they blend away pretty easily. So you have to build them back up and then blend them, and then build them back up and then blend them. And so I think it takes a little bit longer. And so I like this palette personally. I like every look that I've created with it. It's right now, I would say one of my favorites. I think it's really beautiful, but I don't know that I would say it's worth the price. And I also just like threw it on the ground, which is awesome. Okay, so now my most affordable palettes. So these are my most affordable palettes. These are the 9-pan palettes from ColourPop, the monochromatic 9-pan palettes from ColourPop. I believe they're $12. I'm not a big drugstore eyeshadow person, so these are truly the cheapest eyeshadow palettes I have. This is what Main Squeeze looks like, mostly reds. The next time I declutter and do, I don't know if I'm going to do a declutter video, but I'm probably going to get rid of both of these. They're very one note. I don't think you like this one, honey, especially, like, I mean, it's an all yellow palette, so I don't know what I was expecting, but every look I've done turns out the exact same. Like it looks exactly the same. So I'm not a huge fan of those two. But I did get a lot of use out of them. I bought them last year and I actually used them quite a bit. And for 12 bucks, I definitely feel like I got my use out of them, but I'm going to pass them along to a friend or family that I think, a friend or family member that I think will get to enjoy them more. Whereas for me, I've just kind of, the creativity with using them has kind of just like ended. Okay, so the next category is the everyday palette. Now, I don't use the same palette every day. I actually purposefully try not to. And if I do, it's because I'm trying. Right now, I should back up for a second. Right now, I'm trying to use every single shade and every single eyeshadow palette I have. And then that way I can truly be like, I've used the shadow or each palette like multiple times at this point. Do I like it? Do I still feel inspired by it? Do I want to keep it? That type of thing. So that's what I'm working through. So really, I'm not using every palette. There are some palettes where I've to try and feel like I'm getting more use out of palettes where I'm like iffy on whether or not I want to keep them. I'm taking like a certain week, and that's the palette I'm going to focus on using every shade in that week. And so I can kind of make my decision then and there. So I've done that so far. But anyway, so when I was giving consideration to this category of everyday palette, I was thinking of like, which palettes would I use every day? Because I don't have a lot of, I do have neutral palettes that I think could be used every day, but I wanted to pick a palette that I felt like I could truly use every day for the way that I like to do my makeup. And so for me, that palette is the Urban Decay Born to Run palette. And I just think this palette is stunning. You have a ton of neutral shades. You also have these berry tones. You can do this like metallic purple look. You have these teals down, this teal and this blue down here. You could create a gray, sparkly, smoky eye. I love doing this green, the shade Wanderlust, all over the lid as just a, metallic shade. Unfortunately, Weekender is kind of the only transition shade for my skin tone that I like to use in this palette, so it's starting to wear down a little bit here. But I just overall, I really, really like this palette. If I had to use a palette every day, like especially if I think about I'm going on a trip, what palette would I want to take that doesn't take up a lot of room, that I could create different looks with, that I would want to take with me? And it would definitely be this one. Not that I'm going on a trip anytime soon. So next up is the most colorful palette. So for that, I have the Ace, I think it's Beauté is how you pronounce it. But I've also heard people say Ace Beauté. I don't know. I can't say Beauté with a straight face. Ace Beauté. Like, I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, this is the Slice of Paradise palette. This is a true rainbow palette. We have the red, orange, yellow, green, blues, and purples, and then even some pinks and a corally shade mixed in there. It's mostly matte, so you do have this purple metallic here and this green metallic here. So as far as shimmers go, I do tend to pull some other shades in from other palettes, but as far as my most colorful palette, I felt like this one was the most colorful in the sense of it didn't really include that many neutral shades, or like it truly was just a colorful palette. And I own some, I don't feel like I own that many rainbow palettes. Oh, okay. So next up is my smallest eyeshadow palette. And that is going to be the Anastasia Beverly Hills Mini Volume 2 palette. And she's so cute, so little. So this is also a 9-pan palette, but this in size is smaller than any of my other ones. I actually measured it up against my Huda Beauty Neon Obsessions palettes, and they're just a tiny bit taller. But this is what she looks like. Fun, bright colors. I really like this palette. I haven't used it because when I did a video where I used every shade in this palette, and so this is one of my palettes where I've used every shade. So while I'm working through on my project of using up all of my makeup, this one's kind of fallen to the wayside, but I really like this palette. I really like that teal shade. Both shimmers I think are really beautiful, and that purple shade is really nice as well. And then also I just love the outside packaging, which isn't a good enough reason to like a palette, but I really like the packaging. So next up is the biggest palette in my collection, and we are going back to the Norvina brand, or we're going back to Anastasia Beverly Hills in the Norvina brand specific, or Norvina collection specifically. And my eyelash is coming up. Let's see how bad that looks. Oh, terrible. Looks terrible. Thanks for telling me, guys. Okay, this eyelash is oh my god, is lifting in the corner. Oh, Jesus. So this lash is lifting in the corner. I apologize if it's been distracting to you up until this point. I just noticed it. I think we fixed her, but she might just pop right back up. Anyways, these are my two biggest palettes. These are the Anastasia Beverly Hills Volume 1 and Volume 3 palettes. Apparently, I only like her odd numbers in the big ones because she has a 2 and a 4, and I'm not interested in purchasing either of those. So this is the Volume 1. It's mainly purple, a mainly purple color story, but you have some nice pink shades and then some of these other fun colors that you can pull in to really create different looks. I really like this palette. The white shade in that Volume 1 palette is actually my favorite white shade ever. Okay, so I completely failed you guys, and I did not realize that those palettes are massive and were not in frame. So I'm just dropping in a picture of the Norvina Volume 1 palette here so you can see what the heck I was even talking about, in case you haven't seen that palette before. And then here's the Norvina Volume 3, which I'm going to talk about in a second. I figured I'd give you a preview of that right here as well. So yeah, sorry about that. This one I really love. This one just gives me such like Scooby-Doo vibes, probably because of this quad right here in the corner. But I really like this one. People really knock the shimmers in these. I mean, they're not the best shimmers I've ever used, but this eyelash is popping up. Okay, so this is just going to be popped up, and I'm really sorry, but just ignore it. I'm not going to go fix it. So, a lot of people really knock the shimmers in these, just saying they're not that great, and they're not the best shimmers ever, but I think they look good on the eye, and I'm able to get them to look the way that I want to, so I don't have any issues with it. Best, so the next category is the eyeshadow palette you have the best memory with. So I feel like a lot of people were doing like the palette that they wore on their wedding day. Honestly, I feel like this is so distracting. Maybe me continuing to stop is more distracting. Okay, you know what? I'll be right back. Okay, so much better. All right, I feel like a new woman. Okay, so where was I again? Okay, so we're on best memory as the category. So a lot of the other videos I was watching, they were talking about the palette that they used on their wedding day, or a palette that they bought on a trip, or things like that. My palette is not one that I bought on a trip, but it's one that I brought on a trip. And so when I see this palette, that's what I think of. So I have the Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag palette, My family does they used to do an annual camping trip, and the last time we went, we go to Lake Shasta in California. It was the summer that this palette came out, so I had just bought this palette right before, and I wanted to bring it with me. And then it was camping, so probably most of you are like, you did your makeup while you were camping, and the answer is yes, I did. And I just love this palette. I kind of forget about her because I've had her for a while, so she falls to the wayside. And when I got the palette, I really used like this half, because I wasn't super comfortable veering into colorful eyeshadow yet. But this palette really like helped me to like want to explore using colorful eyeshadow. And then I just had a lot of fun, I don't know, doing different looks. I did like this smoky eye was one of my favorite looks I did with this palette, or any palette I've had. I really like the smoky eye look you get when using this palette. Since then, I've explored using the colorful shades more, and every time I use this palette, I'm just like, I'm really happy with how the looks turn out. So, I really like this palette. I don't know if you can get it still off of Lunar Beauty's website or Morphe's website, but it is definitely one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes. I highly recommend it. The next category is an eyeshadow palette that you think is worth the hype. So I'm going to say my Jackie Aina Anastasia Beverly Hills palette is worth the hype. I feel like a lot of the videos I've watched lately, and I've been watching like eyeshadow palette collection declutter videos and eyeshadow palette tag videos, and pale people especially, have been really knocking this palette just because they say that it doesn't have a transition shade. And I beg to differ. Ginger and Supreme both work as transition shades for me, and I'm very pale. I really like this palette. I think this palette deserves, I swear, if I can just get this one to stay down so that we can make it through this video, that would be great. But I think that there's a lot of people that really hype this up, that say they really like this palette, and so I think this palette is worthy of all of that hype and should get more hype. When it launched, they launched other palettes like right behind it, and so I think it kind of like fell to the wayside as far as people using it. But I love this one. I'll still say this is my favorite eyeshadow palette that I own. Not worth the hype. So I actually had a different palette selected for this. I originally selected the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette because I feel like I just don't get excited by that palette when I look at it anymore. And yeah, I don't know. It's very neutral, very basic. So I was going to pick that one, but then I felt like I talked about Anastasia Beverly Hills in almost every single one of these categories, so I wanted to pick a different brand. It is another brand that I've already talked about, but as far as palettes that I think are not worth the hype, I feel like have to have a lot of hype to be selected, so they have to come from a brand that is pretty popular. And so I only have, a lot of my brands, I guess some of my brands are pretty popular, but there's two brands that I have where I have palettes from them that I've kept that I don't love, and that's Anastasia Beverly Hills and ColourPop. And from ColourPop, the palette that I do not think is worth the hype is the Sweet Talk palette. Everybody loves this palette, and I just don't. I mean, that side to side, it's a Super Shock shadow. It's very pretty, but there's two pressed glitters in here. I'm not going to use either of those. There's so many of these peachy shades. And even like with the neutrals, I just feel like it's pretty, I don't want to say lackluster because the shimmers are pretty, but it's just like very one note. Like the looks come out pretty similar. There's not a lot of variety, not a lot of depth that you can get with them. There's not very many like different combinations that you can create to really make them look different. So I feel like this is a nice palette when you're sort of like, don't want to think about your eyeshadow and you just want to slap something on and know that it looks good. This is a good palette for that. All these colors are going to go together. Those shimmers are going to look amazing. And favorite palette from favorite brand. So I would say my favorite brand, the brand that I have the most eyeshadow palettes from is Anastasia Beverly Hills. But if I could have more palettes from this brand, I would. So my favorite brand is Melt Cosmetics, and my favorite palette from them is the Muerte palette. I just think this palette is so beautiful. I just love the color story. I think it's super unique and fun, and I think the packaging is amazing, and I could just continue to sing the praises of this palette all day long. So now my most used palette, so last up is my most used palette, which I feel like is difficult because I don't use up a lot of my palettes, but I think I would have to go with the Greek Goddess palette from Lunar Beauty. When I was looking at palettes, like this is the one where I have the deepest, you can't even probably really see them on camera, but this shade and this shade have pretty deep dips into them. This one, Calliope, Cleo, and Aphrodite are also getting there. The shimmers like barely look used other than Athena. I have a pretty deep dip in there, but I feel like this is the palette that I've probably used the most, and I can tell that from the matte shadows that I've used. So I mean, it was a toss-up between, I would say, this one and Soft Glam, and I think this one, it looks like I've used this one quite a bit more, and I feel like this one has more product. So I think that's why it kind of shows that I've used it more. So anyways, that was all of the categories. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what your palettes that you like for those categories are, or if you disagree with me. I've watched a lot of these videos and people have like exactly flipped, like pretty much saying like worth the hype was Modern Renaissance, not worth the hype was Jackie Aina, which is funny to me. So I'm totally open to the idea that you probably feel the complete opposite way that I do about most of these eyeshadow palettes. I'm also planning on doing a helpful tips video. I just haven't filmed it yet. So that's coming. And then I'm also going to do an indie brand haul. That Kaleidos, those palettes, those were the last 2 palettes I was waiting on as far as like this big order I made of indie brands, or I was thinking of doing like a ranking of like the palettes I've purchased since quarantine. So, you know, let me know which one you'd like to see in the comments down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or I mean, if you want to give it a thumbs up even if you didn't enjoy it, but you just like me as a person, that would be nice. And then if you could also please subscribe. Like I said, I got other videos that are coming, and then, you know, we have the semifinals and the finals of March through May sadness, so I know you want to see that. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye!